A 17-year-old boy walked into the courtroom alone. Determined to prove his innocence, he carried nothing but a worn stack of notes and the memory of his father, who had died fighting the same unjust system. But when the judge scoffed and the courtroom burst into laughter, could he still turn the tide in his favor? If you believe the truth deserves to be heard, no matter who speaks it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's go back to where it all began. In a quiet southern town where time crawled and justice lagged behind, a small courtroom brimmed with silent tension. Wooden benches groaned under the weight of suspicion and judgment. Most of the crowd was white, and most had already decided how this story would end. At the center stood Malik Carter, 17, slim, dark-skinned, dressed in a hand-me-down suit, 2 sizes too big, borrowed from a cousin who had only worn it once, to a funeral. Malik had no lawyer, no money, no one in the room who believed in him, but he had something no one else could see: determination. Malik's hand trembled slightly as he took his seat, clutching a worn folder filled with handwritten notes. He looked out of place, too young, too alone. But behind his eyes burned a quiet, unshakable fire. It was the fire of someone who had been judged long before today, and had learned to stand alone. Across the courtroom, Prosecutor Richard Bowman sat with an air of easy confidence. His suit was crisp, his smile sharper than his tongue. To him, this wasn't a trial. It was a routine victory, a formality. Then came the voice that sliced through the heavy silence. Judge Evelyn Hardwick, late 50s, her face etched with years of power and decisions, adjusted her glasses, locking eyes with Malik. "Mr. Carter," she said, her tone flat and cold, "you've chosen to represent yourself. Grand theft auto and resisting arrest are serious charges. This is not a school debate. Do you honestly believe you're ready to stand before this court on your own?" A few snickers rippled through the courtroom. Bowman smirked, but Malik didn't flinch. He stood, nervous but steady, cleared his throat, met the judge's stare. "No, Your Honor," he said. "I'm not ready." A pause, then stronger. "But I am innocent, and today, that's what I came to prove." Silence. The room froze. The judge raised an eyebrow. The smirks faded, briefly. Because what no one in that courtroom realized yet was that this boy, the one they had dismissed without a second thought, was about to make them question everything they believed. The first witness was Officer Edward Collins, middle-aged, broad-shouldered, and standing as if still reporting for duty in the military. He spoke with practiced confidence, like a man used to being believed. "I saw the suspect," he said, voice steady, leaning into the driver's side window, holding what looked like a tool. He was trying to hot-wire the car. "When I identified myself as an officer, he ran." A few people in the room nodded. It sounded convincing, clean, simple, official. But at the defense table, Malik was already writing. His pen moved with quiet purpose. When it was his turn, he rose slowly. His voice carried no anger, only a calm, focused tone that even caught the judge's attention. "Officer Collins," Malik began, "you said you saw me fumbling with wires. Can you tell the court? How far away were you when this happened?" Collins didn't hesitate. "About 20 feet. It was night." Malik nodded. "And was the car window open?" "No," Collins replied. "It was closed." Malik looked up. "So, from 20 feet away, at night, through a closed window, you could clearly see me handling wires." A pause. The room was silent again. This time, the silence felt different, heavier. "So, from 20 feet away," Malik said, his voice even and controlled, "in the dark, through a closed car window, you could see me." A a black teenager in a dark hoodie, touching wires inside the car. A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Hardwick looked up from her notes, now watching Malik more closely. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Your Honor," he said respectfully, "with the court's permission, I'd like to approach the witness." The judge gave a small nod. Malik walked forward and placed a printed photo in front of Officer Collins. "This is the exact car involved," he said. "Can you show the court where the ignition wires are?" Collins frowned, squinted at the photo, then pointed vaguely toward the dashboard. Malik turned to the jury, calm but deliberate. "The ignition wires," he said, "are tucked deep behind the steering column, not visible from outside the car. Yet Officer Collins claims he saw me fumbling with them from 20 feet away at night through a closed window." More whispers. Jurors leaned forward, now fully engaged. The prosecutor rose, clearly unsettled. "Objection! Speculation!" Before the judge could respond, Malik spoke again, steady and unwavering. "Your Honor, if the state's key witness is describing something physically impossible, how can we trust any part of his story?" Silence. This time, no one laughed. Then the judge spoke. "Overruled. Continue, Mr. Carter." Just like that, the mood shifted. For the first time, someone wasn't just hearing Malik. They were listening. The next witness was Patricia Monroe, the owner of the stolen car. She walked in confidently, hair flawless, blazer sharp. But her jaw was tight, and she never once looked at Malik. She told the court she had parked her car outside her home the night before. When she woke up, it was gone. Hours later, police recovered it, with a young black teen inside. To her, the story seemed simple, but when Malik stood, the courtroom hushed. He didn't attack her. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he spoke softly, gently even. "Mrs. Monroe," he began, "did you see the car being taken?" She shook her head. Number I was asleep. "Were the windows broken?" "No, they were intact." "Any signs of forced entry?" "None," she replied. Malik paused, held her gaze. Then, almost casually, as if it had just occurred to him, he asked, "Who else has access to your car keys?" Just for a second, barely a flicker, her eyes moved. It was quick, but Malik saw it. "Just me," she answered, then added, "and my husband." That was all he needed. Malik turned to the judge, clear, calm, precise. "Your Honor," he said, "I'd like to call a new witness to the stand, Mr. Charles Monroe." The prosecutor shot to his feet. "Objection. This witness isn't on the list. This is sudden and unfair." But Malik remained calm. "Your Honor," he said, "the truth doesn't always come on schedule. Just because the prosecution overlooked it doesn't mean it shouldn't be heard." Judge Evelyn studied him in silence. Then she gave a small nod. "Overruled. Proceed." And just like that, Charles Monroe was called to the stand. He was tall, reserved, and clearly uneasy. He walked slowly, head down, and raised his right hand to take the oath. Malik didn't rush. He let the silence speak. Then, simply, "Mr. Monroe, did you have access to the car keys the night it went missing?" Charles nodded. "Yes." Malik paused. Then asked the question that would change everything. "Did you lend the car to anyone that night?" Charles hesitated. His jaw clenched. His hands gripped the edge of the witness stand. Across the room, Patricia Monroe sat stiff and still, her face unreadable. Charles didn't look at her. I lent it to my nephew, Alex. He needed it to take a girl out." Gasps. Whispers. The courtroom stirred like a shaken beehive. Someone near the back muttered, "You've got to be kidding." Patricia Monroe's face turned red. Still, she didn't move, not even to blink. And Malik, he didn't smirk. He didn't celebrate. He simply stood still, steady as stone. Because he knew. The truth had just walked into the light. So, just to be clear, Malik said, eyes locked on Charles, the car wasn't stolen. You loaned it out, and no one told the police. Charles looked down, ashamed. I didn't think it mattered. Malik nodded slightly, then turned to face the jury. His voice remained calm, but his words carried weight. The entire case against me is built on one idea, that I stole a car. But there was no theft, no broken glass, no forced entry, no crime, just a missing truth, ignored or hidden. The prosecutor leapt up, frustration rising. Your Honor, the defendant was still found inside the vehicle, without permission. But Malik didn't look at him. He faced the judge. Your Honor, he said firmly, if the car wasn't stolen, then this isn't Grand Theft Auto. And if it's not Grand Theft Auto, what exactly is it? Silence. Judge Evelyn paused, brows furrowed. She looked at Charles, then slowly turned to her notes. Something had shifted. The case, once airtight, now seemed shaky, maybe even dishonest. Malik gave a small, respectful nod and sat down. As Charles Monroe stepped off the stand, the room, once full of quiet mockery and knowing smirks, had changed. Now there was silence, doubt, and maybe, for the first time, a trace of respect. What began as a prosecution was starting to feel like a revelation. But Malik wasn't done. He rose again, this time with a calm certainty. Your Honor, he said, I'd like to call my next witness, Alex Monroe. A skinny, nervous boy stood up from the gallery. Barely 18, awkward, eyes darting like he was trying to find the exit. He took the stand slowly, hands fidgeting, never once looking at his aunt. Malik didn't speak right away. He let the silence stretch, just enough to settle the room. Then, gently, he asked, Alex, can you tell the court what happened the night you borrowed the car? Alex swallowed, glanced once at the judge, then began. My uncle gave me the keys. I used the car to go on a short date. Nothing special, just a few hours. I parked it a few blocks from our house and walked home, planned to bring it back in the morning. He hesitated, his voice softer now. But when I went back, the car was gone. A hush fell. Malik stepped closer. Did you call anyone? The police? Your uncle? Alex shook his head slowly. Number I didn't tell anyone. Why not? Malik asked. The boy looked down. Because I was scared. Scared of being blamed. Scared of what people would think. Scared I'd get in trouble. His voice cracked just slightly at the end. The room fell into silence. Even the prosecutor didn't move. Then Malik turned to the judge. His tone was calm, but unwavering. Your Honor, the question that's lingered since day one. If the car wasn't stolen, if it was borrowed, parked, and simply misplaced, then why was I arrested? No one answered. Not yet. But the silence said enough. Then Malik took a breath and turned toward the screen in the courtroom. With your permission, he said, I'd like to show the court a video. Judge Evelyn nodded, slowly. All eyes turned forward, not to Malik, not to the lawyers, but to the truth about to unfold. It wasn't the security footage the police had submitted. This was different. A clip recorded by Malik's best friend, Zion, from across the street that night. The screen lit up, shaky, handheld, but clear. The video showed Malik walking slowly toward the parked car. No sneaking, no smashing, just cautious steps. The car door was already ajar. He looked inside, hesitant, like someone trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Then, out of nowhere, a man in plain clothes burst out from the shadows. No badge, no uniform, just yelling, just Force! Malik turned and ran. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The video jerked wildly as Zion must have dropped the phone. Then it cut to black. Malik stepped forward, facing the room. No raised voice, no dramatics. Just the truth, spoken plainly. I didn't resist arrest. I ran because I was afraid. The man who charged at me wasn't in uniform, no siren, no ID, just aggression from the dark. Silence settled, deep and tense, a truth too heavy to ignore. At the back of the room, a woman sat frozen. Malik's mother. She had been there from the beginning, quiet, steady, barely seen. She had begged him not to fight this. She had seen too many stories end the wrong way. Too many sons disappear under the weight of a system built to doubt them. Now, for the first time, the court saw what she feared, and what Malik had lived through. She had already buried one, Malik's father. But now, watching her son stand tall, not with anger, but with unyielding truth, she couldn't help herself. A tear escaped, trailing silently down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Malik didn't see her cry, though perhaps he felt its weight in the charged air. Because when he returned to his seat, the courtroom no longer saw a boy on trial. They saw a young man methodically, patiently cracking open a system built to keep him silent. The room was transformed. Not the quiet of routine, but the heavy stillness that follows a seismic shift. The accusations were unraveling. The evidence was crumbling under scrutiny. Now, one question hovered, unspoken yet palpable. Who was Malik Carter? Not merely as recorded on paper or defined by police reports, but who was he beneath it all? Rising again, Malik moved with careful deliberation, as if cradling something exceedingly fragile. And indeed, he was. From his battered folder, he retrieved a small, wrinkled envelope. Its edges were softened by years of folding, a tangible memory woven with care. Inside lay a faded letter, penned by a man now lost to time. Without flamboyance, Malik held the envelope gently in both hands. He then fixed his steady gaze on Judge Hardwick. "Your Honor," he began, his voice calm yet resolute, "I ask you to consider this letter, a final testament from someone who believed in truth even when the world was steeped in injustice." In that moment, every eye in the room was drawn to him, not merely as a defendant, but as a soul determined to reclaim his narrative, to peel back the layers of a system that had, for too long, spoken over him. This letter was written by my father while he was in prison, before he died. He wanted me to read it when I was old enough to truly understand. Judge Evelyn said nothing. She only gave a slight, thoughtful nod. Malik unfolded the letter slowly, as if opening a fragile memory. He didn't read it all, just enough. His voice remained steady, but the spaces between his words spoke volumes. "My son, if one day you come to understand the law, not just the words, but the weight they carry, I hope you use it to lift someone up, not to get ahead, but to pull someone back from being forgotten, even if that someone is you." He stopped there. The silence that filled the courtroom said more than any words could. Malik didn't sit down. He scanned the jury, the judge, the rows of quiet faces. Then, softly but clearly, he spoke again, not arguing or debating, just sharing what needed to be heard. "I'm not standing here because I thought I could win. I'm standing here because I couldn't stand watching people like my father disappear. My mother told me not to do this. She said, 'Don't fight them. They won't let you win.'" He paused, the weight of his next words hanging heavy in the air. Then Malik's gaze drifted toward the back of the room, where his mother sat. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, her shoulders held tall. Her eyes were hard to read, but beneath the surface, Her strength was unmistakable. Malik turned back to face the courtroom. "But I didn't come here to win. I came here to be seen, not just as a defendant, but as a son, as a boy who didn't steal a car, but who inherited a burden." A few jurors shifted uneasily in their seats. An older woman with silver-streaked hair looked down, exhaling slowly. In the hush, Malik's mother closed her eyes. She had watched her husband walk into a courtroom once and never come back. She had raised her son in a world that demanded silence. She had begged him not to fight. Now, seeing him stand, not to battle, but to stand for something greater, she let tears fall freely. She made no effort to wipe them away. These weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of quiet pride. Judge Evelyn hadn't written a word in minutes. Her pen lay still on the desk. She watched Malik, not as a judge, but as a human who had just witnessed something real. For the first time in a long time, she didn't see a case number. She saw a child standing where no child should ever have to stand. Malik said nothing more. He folded the letter with care and slipped it back into his folder. Then he returned to his seat. No applause, no gasps, only silence. The kind of silence that fills a room and lingers. Because what had just unfolded wasn't a legal argument. It was the truth. And at last, everyone had heard it. After all the witnesses, all the evidence, and all the questions, there was one story left to tell. His own. The judge spoke quietly, more out of routine than anything else. "Mr. Carter, do you wish to testify on your own behalf?" Malik nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." He stood, not with theatrics, but with the quiet strength of someone who had carried silence for far too long. As he made his way to the witness stand, a deep calm settled over the courtroom, not born from fear or suspense, but from something more profound: attention, respect, and the slow, uneasy shift toward understanding. Malik was sworn in. He sat, adjusted the microphone gently, and rested his hands on the table to steady himself. He didn't begin with anger or emotion. He began with the truth. He explained how, just after 10 p.m. that night, he was walking home after a long shift at the gas station where he worked weekends. He didn't own a car, never had. Walking through dimly lit streets was a routine part of his life. But that night, something felt wrong. A black sedan was parked awkwardly on the side of the road, the driver's door left slightly ajar. No lights were on. No one was nearby. It looked abandoned, as if someone had left in a rush. Malik slowed his pace and stepped closer. At first, he didn't touch the car. He just leaned in to look inside. There, he saw an old backpack resting on the passenger seat, a half-empty soda can in the cup holder, and the glove compartment slightly open. No broken windows, no alarms sounding. Malik paused, not for effect, but because the memory was vivid and raw. He wanted every detail to count. He admitted he didn't know why he leaned in further. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. A quiet voice inside urging him to check before moving on. What he didn't expect was the sudden shout behind him, sharp, aggressive, and without warning. Then, a man charged at him. No uniform, no badge. Just jeans, a hoodie, and pure anger. Malik's voice remained steady, but with each word, the tension in the room thickened. He described that moment. Not just confusion, but fear. Not the kind that makes your heart race, but the deeper kind, forged by generations of stories ending badly for boys who didn't run. He didn't know who the man was. He didn't ask. He ran. Not from justice, but toward safety. In that split second, it wasn't about who was right. It was about who might survive. He didn't cry. He didn't plead for sympathy. He simply told his story, piece by piece, shaped by the harsh world he knew. He spoke of his neighborhood, where people learned early not to wait for explanations, where hesitation could mean the difference between walking home and never making it back. "I didn't run from the law," he said quietly. "I ran from danger. Because I didn't see an officer. I saw a man charging at me, angry, shouting, 'No badge, no time.'" He let the weight of those words settle over the room. Then, quietly, he added, "And if I'd stayed, who knows if I'd be standing here now?" Across the courtroom, the skeptical faces shifted. Not with pity, not with guilt, but with genuine attention. For the first time, they weren't just judging a case file. They were listening to a life, not just a case. Malik explained how, even after being tackled and handcuffed, no one told him why he was arrested. No one mentioned the car had been reported stolen. No one asked what he was doing there. He was simply taken, processed, labeled, charged. Then he did something unexpected. He looked down for a moment, then met the jury's eyes. His voice didn't tremble, but it carried the weight of history. "I know what people see when they look at me. A young black man, no lawyer, no money. They think I must have done something." He wasn't angry, just weary. "I grew up hearing my mom say, 'Keep your head down. Don't give them a reason.' But that night, I didn't even have a reason. I was just there." He exhaled slowly. "So, I ran. Because when a man comes at you like that, and you don't know who he is, and the world tells you people like me don't get second chances, you run." At the back of the room, Malik's mother sat perfectly still. Her eyes were locked on him, not pleading, not fearful, but proud. A quiet pride shaped by loss and hardened by experience. She had warned him not to fight the system. She had seen what it did to his father. But now, watching Malik speak with honesty and quiet strength, she understood. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to be heard. Malik finished, his voice steady. "I didn't come here to change minds. I came to speak my truth because my father never got that chance, because too many like him never do. And if I stay silent, then I become part of what took him." He didn't wait for a reaction. He simply looked at the judge, nodded respectfully, and sat down. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was deep, almost reverent. In that moment, the courtroom ceased to be just a courtroom. It became a place where a boy had become a voice, and that voice reminded everyone of something real. Justice was supposed to sound a certain way. Malik had said all he needed to say, not with anger, not with rage, but with something far harder to ignore: the truth. He returned to his seat, and for a long moment, no one moved. No one even blinked. Because what lingered in the air wasn't just a defense, it was a wake-up call. A reminder of how easily people like him are misunderstood, judged unfairly, and forgotten. Just before the judge could speak, Malik turned to the jury once more. His voice softened, yet every word still carried weight. "I don't have a law degree. I don't wear a fancy suit. I don't even have a lawyer." He paused, then added, firm and steady, "But I have the truth, and a letter from a father who died waiting for justice to matter." That was it, his final words in his own defense. Somehow, they said everything. The silence that followed wasn't awkward or tense. It was heavy, laden with the things no one quite knew how to say. One juror slowly wiped her glasses, but didn't put them back on. Another rested his hands on the railing, his gaze steady now. Even the prosecutor sat frozen, his pen still. He had prepared 100 arguments, but none fit anymore. In the back row, Malik's mother leaned forward slightly, not to cry or break down, but simply to breathe. For the first time in hours, maybe days, she took a slow, steady breath, the kind that says, "He made it this far." And maybe that was enough. At the bench, Judge Evelyn Hardwick sat straighter than usual. She wasn't writing anymore. She wasn't scanning the room. She simply looked at Malik. Really looked, like seeing a mirror finally cleaned, noticing what had been hidden all along. Years in court had taught her to spot lies, tricks, and half-truths. But what she had just heard was real. When she finally spoke, her voice lost its usual cold edge. It was softer now, more human. "Mr. Carter," she said. Malik looked up. "You've done something rare today. You didn't just defend yourself. You made us look closer. Think harder." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Malik, you should go to law school, not to win cases, not to prove people wrong, but to change things." She met his eyes, not as a judge, but as someone who had finally listened. Malik said nothing. He didn't smile. He just nodded once, knowing everything wouldn't change today. Maybe not even tomorrow. But something had shifted. For the first time in his life, the system didn't feel like a locked door. It felt like one that could be opened. The jury took only 3 hours to decide. But for Malik, it felt like forever. He sat quietly at the defense table, hands folded, head bowed, not in defeat, but in calm stillness. Around him, the courtroom murmured softly. Reporters whispered. Spectators leaned forward, waiting. Then the door opened. 12 people entered, calm, serious, carrying more than just a verdict. They carried the weight of what they had witnessed. The judge called for order and asked the foreman to stand. A middle-aged man in a navy jacket rose, holding a piece of paper. His voice was steady. "On the charge of grand theft auto, we find the defendant not guilty." A wave of relief swept through the room. Some gasped. Others bowed their heads. "On the charge of resisting arrest, we find the defendant not guilty." Silence followed, not empty, but heavy with emotion, memory, and a sense of justice. Malik didn't react immediately. He sat still, not just hearing the words, but feeling their meaning settle deep inside him. Then, from behind, strong arms wrapped around his shoulders. His mother. Her grip was tight, trembling, but warm. She didn't say much, just leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. "Your father would be proud of you. So proud." Malik closed his eyes, letting the moment wash over him. For a moment, he released the fight, the heavy burden he'd carried from the start. As the courtroom slowly emptied, a familiar figure approached. Alex Monroe, hands in his pockets, shoulders slumped, not with guilt, but with quiet shame, stood before Malik, eyes cast downward. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I should have told the truth sooner. I never wanted any of this to happen." Malik met his gaze, not with anger, but with calm understanding. "It's all right," he replied. "We all learn in our own time." Alex gave a small nod and stepped back into the crowd. One more young man leaving with a lesson he wouldn't forget. Outside, the sun dipped low, turning the sky to gold. On the courthouse steps, Malik's best friend waited, phone in hand. He didn't say a word, just hit record. Through that small lens, he captured a boy walking out of court. Not broken, but changed. Malik stepped into the light, blinking against the glow, then smiled softly. "Not loud, not proud, just real," he said. Turning to the camera, as if answering an unspoken question, he added, "I'm going to law school. One day, no one will be silenced in court like my father was." With that, he kept walking. down the steps, into the street, and toward whatever came next. The fight wasn't over, but something had shifted. He was no longer just a boy on trial, he had become a voice. And voices like his don't disappear. They resonate. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue bringing powerful stories like this to light. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next voice that deserves to be heard.